Shalom, everyone. I'm Ariella. Could you give me an indication whether or not you can hear me okay and see me? We do have a 15-second lag, so I'll give you time to let me know. Okay, thumbs up, I see. I'm surprised so many of you came out tonight. Thank you so much. It is 4th of July, and in addition to being our Independence Day, one of my favorite movies was Raid on Entebbe, and today is the anniversary of that marvelous Israeli rescue of the hostages at the Entebbe airport. And I wanted to tell you that at the end of this evening, I found a 9-minute clip that was absolutely wonderful of the Entebbe raid, and I'm going to go ahead and play it. So if you choose to stay a little bit longer tonight, that'll be up and available for you to watch. If you haven't signed in yet, if you'd click on the menu button on the bottom and sign in with whatever name you want. Otherwise, as I look over to the side here, I'll be calling you by your number. And my vision isn't all that good, which I'm going to demonstrate right now by putting my glasses on so I might even actually be able to see. Now, in addition to this 15-second lag, I wanted to tell you that I have a big monitor in front of me since I'm running a PowerPoint, as well as the Ustream application, and I have the chat over to the side. So you're going to see my head bobbing around. You're going to see a glare on my glasses. And to be perfectly honest with you, I'm very jealous of people who can manage to speak and look directly into the webcam and be able to do their work. My webcam is up really high, number one, and number two, I can't strain my neck and be able to see my notes and the screen. So having gotten that out of the way, I hope you'll forgive me. And welcome to Kabbalat Shabbat at OneShul. Now, last time was my first time doing a Kabbalat Shabbat service, and I went into great detail about everything in the beginning with respect to our rituals, etc. And I did leave some of that in tonight, but I took out the majority of it so it wouldn't be so lengthy or bore you to tears. So, as you know, Kabbalat Shabbat means reception of the Sabbath, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing tonight. It's our most important ritual observance, and it's the only one that's instituted in the Ten Commandments. And I'd like to do something a little bit different tonight, and that's to start off with how Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav commenced his Shabbat. I'm going, let's leave this. So now we're going to move on to the lighting of the candles. As you know, that's a rabbinic institution, and this is what formally ushers in the Sabbath. We're supposed to have a minimum of 2 candles, and that comes from the 4th of the 10 Commandments that appears in 2 different places. Remember the Sabbath, which is in Exodus, and observe the Sabbath day to keep it holy, which is in Deuteronomy. As we light our candles tonight, I'd like to read, "These lights are only flickering flames, yet flames illumine our uncertain steps. Flames purify and renew, soften and refine. They brighten and make warm. Flames remind us of Sabbaths long past and of their beauty that delighted our hearts. May they inspire us to work for the great Sabbath of peace." And now the blessing for the candles.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו, וציוונו להדליק נר של שבת.
Now, you know how I love to pretend, so can we pretend for a moment that we lit our candles, we went to shul, and then we came home before we ate? Rabbi Yossi ben Huda in the Talmud says that when we come home from shul, we have two angels that come with us, one good one and one bad one. There's a song from the 17th century that's one of my absolute favorites, and it's traditionally sung around the Shabbat table. Shalom Aleichem, peace upon you.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Yasharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem LaShalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni LeShalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Zeichem LaShalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Let's return now to our rituals and blessings for the wine, hand washing, and the bread. As you know, Kiddush means sanctification or holy. And when we do a traditional Shabbat, we read a section of the creation story from Genesis that describes how God rested on the seventh day. And we say a blessing over the wine, which is what we'll be doing in just a moment, and a blessing over Shabbat itself. It's forbidden to eat or drink anything before Kiddush, and that starts Friday at sundown. And here is the blessing for the wine.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pari hagafen.
Pretty hand washing cup, eh? Now, another way in which we sanctify Shabbat is another rabbinic ordinance from temple times of the ritual hand washing after Kiddush and before we bless the bread. Originally, it was decreed only for the priests before they ate their sacred food. Eventually, it was extended to all of us. Here is the hand washing blessing.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidishanu b'mitzvotav, וציוונו על נטילת ידיים.
The final ritual before partaking of our Shabbat meal is the blessing of the bread, and although the picture doesn't show it, the bread and the knife are to be completely covered both above and below. The uncut loaves are uncovered, raised, and the blessing is said. And here is the blessing for the bread.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lahem min haaretz. Amen.
Now, this may sound a little silly, but I really wanted to play Hine Matov here. That's the first verse from Psalm 133, and it's my way of expressing how happy I am that we're together tonight. So this is Hine Matov.
הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב, לה 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 לה. הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב, לה 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 לה.
Thank you for bearing with that with me. Um, Recall that Kabbalat Shabbat means reception of the Sabbath, and the Talmud tells us, and I said this last time, about Rabbi Hanina, who'd put on his Shabbat clothes and he'd stand outside and say, "Come and let us go forth and meet the Queen of Shabbat." And similarly, Rabbi Yanai donned his festive robes and exclaimed, "Come, O bride, come, O bride." I found this really interesting thing that I'd like to read to you, if you don't mind, if you'd read it with me. The sun has already disappeared beyond the treetops. Come, let us go and welcome the Sabbath Queen. She is already descending among us, holy and blessed, and with her are angels, a host of peace and rest. Come, O Queen, peace be unto you, O angels of peace. Sit among us, O pure Shabbat Queen, and enlighten us with your splendor. Tonight and tomorrow, then you may pass on. And we, for our part, will honor you by wearing beautiful clothing, by singing Zemarot, by praying, and by eating 3 meals, and with complete rest and with pleasant rest. Bless me with peace, O angels of peace. And that's by Bialik. I think that's absolutely beautiful. Now, the stories from the Talmud are one of the reasons that we have the song called L'Chadodi, which is what you'll be hearing, and it's going to be sung in Hebrew. I put the first line in Hebrew up there with the English underneath it, and you're going to hear that refrain repeated multiple times. And in between the refrain, it's the first and second verse that's going to be played. So I'm going to excuse myself from the picture. And there's multiple tunes that can go with this. And since I have the screen here, guess what? I got
Shabbat lekabela, lechadodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat lekabela, lechadodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat lekabela, lechadodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat lekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, ishmiyanu el hamiyuchad. Adonai echad u'shemo echad, l'shem u'tiferet l'tila. L'chadodi, l'chadodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat lekabela. L'chadodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat lekabela. Boi v'shalom, ateret ba'ala, gam b'simcha u'etzala, toch emunei am segula. L'chadodi
Mi Chamoka is based on the Song of the Sea, which is a poem from Exodus 15. It answers the question, who is like you, Lord? And the answer, of course, that there is none like him.
Shemei lekuresha beriku ברוכתה ונחמתה תמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן ואמרו
Usmatifa, Bechasetele, Usmatifa, Bechasetele.
Balak, the king of the Moabites, afraid of the approaching Israelites, hires Balaam, a local prophet, non-Jew. Go curse the Jews, their threat. So Balaam saddles his donkey to ride up to the place where he can look down upon the Israelites and curse them. But as he travels, something gets in the way. God has sent an angel with a sword. Balak, the king of the Moabites, afraid of the approaching Israelites, hires Balaam, a local prophet, non-Jew. Go curse the Jews, their threat. So Balaam saddles his donkey to ride up to the place where he can look down upon the Israelites and curse them. But as he travels, something gets in the way. God has sent an angel with a sword to stand in the path. And while Balaam doesn't see it, the donkey does, and the donkey turns to the side. Balaam is incensed. He whips the donkey to get it back on the path. The donkey again swerves, trying to avoid the angel with the sword. Balaam again whips it. The donkey gives up, lays down in the middle of the road, and Balaam continues to strike it and whip it and beat it. And God opens the mouth of the donkey, and says, Balaam, why aren't you seeing what I'm seeing? God has sent an angel to stand in our way, and you don't see it, and I do. God doesn't want you to do this. We're not looking really at two different beings here, Balaam and his donkey. We're looking at one being. We're looking at the intellect and the gut. We can convince ourselves that the path that we're on is the right path, and we're doing something that's the right thing when in fact it's not, and we're not able to see it. And the only thing that communicates with us and tells us that what we're doing is wrong is our gut. So the question is, how far do each of us have to go before we listen to our gut, before we listen to the part of our character, the ethical part of us that is within our limbs, within our legs, even within our ass?
Done. Well, I did a little bit of an overview of my own here. Are any of you familiar with this Parsha? Could you just type in yes or no so I know how much detail to go into? Let's look at the two main characters here, Balak and Balaam. Balak was a grandson of Lot. You remember him from Sodom and Gomorrah, and he was the king of Moab. He became afraid that the Israelites were going to overrun his country, so he consulted with the Midian elders who lived right next door, and they knew Moses very well. As you know, that's where Moses took off to. They suggested that he use words instead of weapons, since he was not going to be able to take over the Israelites, and they thought it might be more useful if he tried words as Moses did. So Balak decided to offer lots of money for Balaam to come and curse Israel. He was very well known throughout the entire region as the Gentile prophet who was able to both bless and curse. He was better known for his cursing. He despised Israel, and as you probably know, this comes from a very long history all the way back to Joshua, Jacob, and this character called Laban. Now, purportedly from the Talmud and some Midrash, Balaam had the gift of knowing the timing of God's anger, and he was extremely materialistic. So here we have God, Balaam, the angel, and the donkey. So the first time that Balak decided that he was going to hunt down Balaam and ask him to come, the people that he sent to beg him to come. He told them, wait here, let me go talk to God, I'll let you know my decision. Well, Balaam talked to God, and God said, don't go. So they went back and told Balak that Balaam wouldn't come. So he sent even more people who were really high up in the country. They were very high-ranking dignitaries. They came and begged him and said, I'm going to give you the world, I'm going to give you all this money, I'm going to give you silver and gold, blah, blah, blah. Now, remembering that Balaam was very materialistic here, that Balaam told the dignitaries, wait here, stay overnight, let me talk with God again, see what's going on. So he did, and God said, go ahead and go, but you can only say what I tell you. So Balaam went ahead and went with the dignitaries back to Balak to curse the Israelites, but he knew that he was doing wrong. On the way there, the donkey stalled 3 times when she saw the angel, and each time Balaam beat her. Then the donkey spoke to Balaam, and after the donkey spoke, the angel was then seen by Balaam and fell down on his face, and if you still don't want me to go, I will go back. He also said, by the way, I have sinned. And one of the reasons I'm mentioning that was, how would he know he was doing wrong since nobody had said anything to him? But the minute he saw the angel, he fell down on his face and said, I have sinned. So if you still don't want me to go, I'll go back. So the angel, speaking for God, said repeated number 2 ahead, go ahead and go, but you can only say what I tell you. Now, how stupid was Balaam? I guess he didn't just get the drift and was really exercising what we all have, which is our free will. So just a few things I thought we might be, just from this cursory overview, looking at it. I don't want to get into anything really deep about parsing some of the words, etc. Some of the bigger issues that I found a little interesting. Obviously, there's some emotions that are in play here and may have affected his choices and behavior. What, if any, emotions did you see in any of this story? This Parsha talks about, obviously, one of the things that came out in the very beginning was greed. And you can just go ahead and type in, and I'll wait here a moment. Well, how about I give you my very cursory take on some of the emotions that may have been in play here, and let me know what you think. First of all, we know that he despised or hated Israel, and that may have affected his decision to go ahead and go and be willing to curse Israel, when in fact he kind of knew that God didn't want him to do that. We already said that he was greedy, and so the greed and the hate, him despising Israel, may have had something to do with him going the first time. And then the second time, when he was actually on his way on the donkey, obviously he got mad, angry. He got angry and he beat the donkey. And of course, there's all these dignitaries who were riding behind him, so he was probably also very embarrassed. As far as any of the emotions affecting his choice to go and his behavior, I think, in fact, that that these emotions did play a part in his going, and that kind of goes back a little bit to what the YouTube was referring to, I think. Can you type in just yes or no, or you don't know what you're talking about or something? And I'll wait a moment. How about any biblical, contemporary, or any personal examples of how emotions might affect our choices and particularly our behavior? I'm going to start off here by saying, and I'm doing this because the first time that I did the Kabbalat Shabbat was week before last, I believe, and we talked about Moses killing the Egyptian who was striking the Hebrew. And in the same line with Moses, recall that he broke the tablets because he was angry, and he struck the rock rather than talking to it as he had been commanded to. Anybody have any comments? Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and skip free will, and let's move on to sacrifices, blessings, and no curses. So in continuing our story, Balaam told Balak that he was only going to be able to say what God told him to say. So over the course of time, starting the first time, each time blessings came out of Balaam's mouth instead of curses. Balak wound up taking Balaam to 3 different places to curse Israel. None of them worked. They all turned out to be blessings. And at every site to which Balak took him, he was instructed to read, oh, Shabbat Shalom, Arava. Sorry. I certainly hope you feel better. Told him to build 7 altars and sacrifice animals at each place. So after the first blessing, what in heaven's name, why would Balaam have expected to have a different outcome the other 2 times when he was already told that he was only going to be able to speak what God told him to say? Anybody have any idea? I can make a guess, and that's about all I can do. Or I can just recite to you what's in some of the midrashim, etc. But remember that supposedly, according to the midrashim and the commentary on the Talmud and the Mishnah and the Gemara, that supposedly Balaam had the power to be able to tell when God was going to be distracted or angry or whatever. So maybe he thought that if he did it at a different time, that he might catch him off guard. And the second thing I was thinking about is maybe he thought that, oh, we're sacrificing stuff. Maybe that'll make him change his mind. And that brings us to the second part of our question here is, what does that kind of expectation say about Balaam, or even more importantly, about Balaam's view of God? Obviously, he doesn't think God knows what he's doing, or that he doesn't pay attention, or that he's not omnipotent or omniscient. So his views of God are a little off from certainly what we currently believe now, and certainly what the Israelites believed. He was extremely arrogant in my estimation. Now here I decided to stick this in because I thought that it was one of the most interesting things to happen here. Balak had a very evil intention, and that was to get rid of Israel via having Balaam curse Israel. But because he made sacrifices, the Talmud says that he merited a reward, and which just really struck me. Now, his reward was to become the grandfather of Ruth. Now, we know who Ruth was. Now, do you think that for Balak this was a reward, or that he really would have cared? Yes, no, don't care? Actually, these are things I was hoping you could answer for me. These aren't trick questions. I have nobody to talk with these kinds of things about, so I was hoping you'd be able to give me a hand here. One of the most important questions I'd like to ask you for my benefit, I'm being very selfish here, how do you feel about rewarding a mitzvah that was performed not just because you were supposed to, even if you didn't want to, but actually performed the mitzvah with an evil intention? So we're familiar with Maimonides' 8 levels of giving to the poor. So even if you give grudgingly, God doesn't really care as long as you give. But to me, this seems like it's a different situation. That there's a difference between doing something grudgingly and actually doing it with purposefully evil intentions. So, and I certainly can't answer the last question, does God care how or why it was done, as long as it was done? The Talmud does address Maimonides, and it does say that that God doesn't care if you give money grudgingly or give tzedakah grudgingly, as long as you give it. But to me, that's a whole different ball game from doing something with an actual purposeful evil intention. Thank you for your response. You don't feel good with the mitzvah that's done in an evil way. I don't either. And obviously that's why I brought this up. And can you answer me yes or no? Do you think that there's a distinction between giving money grudgingly and doing something that's a lot worse and doing it with an evil intention, even though you're performing a mitzvah, but you're performing the mitzvah for an evil purpose? There's a big difference to me. If you're performing it in an evil purpose, I don't see how God would be pleased with that. Thank you. And you keep trying to chat, but no go. Oh, I'm sorry, and I absolutely will have what a pretty name. Is that Jadel? Shauna and Jadel, thank you so much. I really appreciate your comments. As I say, I'm doing this very selfishly, so I'm almost feeling a little guilty. And if you didn't answer me, I wouldn't be surprised. But I appreciate it, and I'm interested to see that, Shauna, you may be leaning in the same direction that I am with respect to the evil intention versus just doing something grudgingly with respect to performing a mitzvah and how it may or may not be received by God. So we're going to have a while to type in a little bit more while I do a little bit of the closing here. And then I'm going to go ahead and put the Entebbe YouTube up, which you can stay for or not stay for. I'm going to leave it up and I'll stay quiet so you won't hear me babbling in the background. This is my email address. If you'd like to suggest anything for a discussion section at any point, I think God looks at intent as well. I don't think He would want us to do the mitzvah with a good purpose. He would want us to do the mitzvah with a good purpose and not of duty. Thank you. Was great. I really appreciate your responses to this. And you answered for me tonight what was one of the more critical points as far as my selfishness, if you will, is concerned. This is my email address. If you have any comments, anything you'd like me to change about the service itself, or if there's anything for a discussion that you would like to talk about, please let me know. And as always, I'd like to tell you that next Monday, Hannah is going to be here with our weekly Parsha lesson. Katsira will be here on Friday the 11th, and I'll be back with you on Friday the 18th, which is the first Shabbat of the 3 weeks of mourning. We'll have a brief service, and then we'll talk about the history, meaning, and rituals of the 3 weeks of mourning. So I'm going to go ahead now and put the Entebbe YouTube on, and I'll come back and turn it off shortly. And I'd like to thank you all very much for coming tonight and staying with me. And I'm sure you're probably still not listening, but Arva, I hope you feel a lot better. And I thank Shauna and Jadel for responding to my need to talk with you. I appreciate it very much. And here comes the Entebbe YouTube video. It's 9 minutes long. Don't feel that you need to say. Thank you. That's very kind of you. You're very welcome, and Shabbat Shalom.
On the 27th of June 1976, an Air France A300 Airbus bound for Paris from Tel Aviv was hijacked by Palestinian and German terrorists after a brief stop in Athens. With 254 passengers on board, including many Israeli citizens, the plane was diverted to Africa. It eventually ended up in Uganda, then run by the ruthless dictator Idi Amin, who was in league with the Palestinians. Amin placed armed guards on the plane while the hostages were herded into a disused airport terminal building. Negotiations to secure their release began, with the Palestinians demanding the release of 53 Arab and German prisoners. Over the next few days, all the hostages, except the French aircrew and 95 Jewish passengers, were released. Anxious relatives invaded the residence of the Israeli Prime Minister to urge him to negotiate. But the Israeli government had no intention of doing so. And on the evening of the 3rd of July, Operation Thunderbolt was launched. 4 Israeli Lockheed C-130 Hercules transports, packed with 35 commandos, 52 paratroopers, and a variety of vehicles, headed south towards Entebbe. The lead aircraft dipped low over Lake Victoria and lined up for Entebbe Airport. It came in as if it were an ordinary commercial landing. The runway lights blazed and no one queried its approach. The Hercules stopped briefly as troops leapt out to set up landing beacons for the following aircraft. They then fanned out to seize the new terminal building, control tower and fuel point. Meanwhile, the Hercules set off down the old runway. It then halted and turned round. The rear ramp was lowered. 2 Land Rovers and a black Mercedes-Benz limousine packed with commandos drove out. With their lights blazing, the 3 vehicles drove at a steady 40 miles per hour towards the old terminal, as if they were President Amin's official motorcade. Close to the old terminal, 2 Ugandan guards challenged the leading vehicle. They were quickly shot dead with silenced pistols. Although it had lost the element of surprise, the assault team leapt out and raced towards the old terminal building. Bursting into the building, the commandos opened fire on a Palestinian terrorist who fell dead. Meanwhile, about 7 minutes after the first Hercules had landed, the next 2 arrived. The runway lights had now been switched off, but the beacons guided them in. These aircraft were carrying 4 Soviet-style armoured personnel carriers. Their task was to secure the main runway and fight off any Ugandan army counterattacks. All 3 aircraft now took up positions at the end of the runway, with their engines running so that they could depart at a moment's notice. At the old terminal, the assault continued. Four terrorists were guarding the hostages in the main concourse area, and 3 were resting in the adjacent VIP lounge. All were eliminated in minutes. Unfortunately, 3 of the hostages were killed in the crossfire between the terrorists and the commandos. A number of Ugandan army soldiers were also killed during the brief firefight before the building was secured. During the assault, the commandos used loudhailers, shouting to the hostages, "Keep down," in Hebrew and English. Outside the terminal, the only commando killed during the raid, the assault forces commander, Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Netanyahu, was hit by a bullet from the control tower. The Ugandan troops who fired it were swiftly wiped out by heavy return fire. Two of the armoured personnel carriers then raced past to deal with the MiG fighters of the Ugandan Air Force, which were based on the other side of the airport, while a screening force covered the approaches. The Ugandan Air Force was quickly dealt with, thus removing any possible threat to the Hercules when they departed. It was now time to go. The fourth Hercules had landed and now taxied up to the old terminal. The hostages were rushed out to it, and the plane turned back towards the main runway. As it did so, the Mercedes and the Land Rovers took the remaining commandos back to the waiting aircraft. With their mission accomplished, they drove back on board and away. The Hercules carrying the surviving hostages arrived in Tel Aviv soon after midday on the 4th of July. They were greeted rapturously by family and friends, and spontaneous celebrations broke out all over Israel as the news of the rescue spread.